So we just want to address you for a couple minutes. My name is Paul Pasaba. I'm here with my fellow teacher, Saeed Menabi. We're representing more than 500 people who signed our petition demanding that the RIIL roll back the decision that was made earlier this month. The league's old policy said that all students should have the opportunity to participate in RIIL activities in a manner that's consistent with their gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the student records. Well, previously, the league stood up in defense of transgender youth inclusion. Your new policy puts the onus on principals and athletic directors to make decisions about individual students' participation in sports. For years, we've had trans youth participating in sports in Rhode Island without issue. This policy change will lead to the exclusion of transgender and gender nonconforming youth in a league where they previously felt protected.
And the motivation for this change came from threats made by a small group of radical activists who would rather attack youth sports than keep them open for everyone. You may argue that this policy is simply a correction to an earlier overreach. Your lawyers might suggest that this change is simply that the primary responsibility is to make the benefits and opportunities of youth sports available to kids in Rhode Island, all kids. That's why this organization exists. As a voluntary private nonprofit association not funded by state or federal government, you are in a unique position to do what's right here. You're under less jurisdiction of an executive order than many of your member schools. As a private association, you establish the rules and regulations for participation. The policy that you had just weeks ago is the right one. The old policy accords with RIDE guidance that calls schools to be safe and free from discrimination for all students, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. The old policy lives up to the first governing values listed on your website: equity, fairness, and justice.
Over my years as an educator, I've gone to games where my students have been playing, including one of my transgender students. Listening to the players, listening to the crowd, I hear cheers of support. I hear athletes pumping each other up. I hear cries of joy or disappointment at points scored or missed. I hear the occasional disagreement with a ref's call. What I don't hear is people despairing over the so-called gender crisis in youth sports. As one of our petitioners, Meredith from Gloucester, asked, who matters more to RIIL, hate groups or kids here in Rhode Island? There are very few transgender athletes, as a reminder, competing anywhere. This is an issue cooked up to divide and distract Americans.
One of the petition signers, Alexi from Situate, communicated how youth sports affected their life. Quote, I, now 30 and still trans, was a trans kid in high school, and if I'd been banned from running, I probably would have lost the love I still have for running. Running is one of the best things in my life, and to take that away from children because of who they are is incredibly terrible to their well-being, end quote. Research shows that trans youth are at a higher risk of depression, homelessness, and suicide than their cisgender peers. Those of us who work with LGBTQ young people are worried about these trends worsening now that trans people are being targeted by lawmakers all over the country. Sports offer these youth the joy and camaraderie that they deserve. Joy and camaraderie that can literally be life-saving. Right now, there are other student athletes in our school system just like Alexi, depending on you to make the right decision here. The hate groups issuing legal threats to RIIL would rather jeopardize youth sports than make them available to all young people. Don't bow down to these bullies. Don't sacrifice the civil rights of trans kids in order to appease them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We want to leave you here. We've got the petition signatures of over 500 people. That was collected in just 5 days. It's 500 people and growing, demanding that you revert back to the original wording of your policy, which explicitly stated, per RIDE guidance, that youth may participate in sports consistent with their gender identity. We collected these again in over 5 days, so this is a movement that's just growing. And we've got the support of several members of the General Assembly included here, several elected officials, and the Rhode Island Department of Education. We're going to continue to grow this effort until you reinstate the old policy and make Rhode Island sports an inclusive space for all student athletes. Please respond to this demand by contacting Saeed or me by a week from today, March 31st, which is, if you didn't know, Transgender Day of Visibility. Let us know how you plan to move forward.
If we're talking about safety, I just want to say that as the parent of a 13-year-old's daughter who is an excellent athlete and happens to be transgender, I would feel extremely unsafe knowing that you and your unbridled interest in her genitalia would have anything to do with her. And
I'm not
her-
interested in her genitalia in the
So,
least.
hold on,
Seem to
everybody.
be.
So this is not the venue for this type of discussion to take place. There certainly are venues to have these discussions, and I would strongly encourage everyone
What is the venue?
to pursue those.
What is the venue to address a real policy?
But this is not the venue for that.
When is the venue?
Yeah, what is the venue for discussing a real policy, please?
Certainly, it's not here, and it's not now.
When is
Not
it?
at Riil?
Where is it?
This policy change was made in an email to administrators and athletic directors with very little communication. I don't know how many transgender people you have on your committee. I don't know how many queer people you have on your committee. I don't know how many people of color you have on your committee. But this decision was made and communicated via email without any voice from the public or those who represent the identities that it impacts.
Thank you. Again, we're going to move through our agenda. I appreciate everyone coming, and I appreciate those that spoke. Certainly,
you have
everyone
us
has an
back?
opinion,
When will we be able to speak?
but we're going to continue through our agenda. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
We'll
Thank
trust
all.
that you'll let us know when and where the venue is,
So we
where
post
we
up-
can, where we can address this, because
we
a lot
do-
of people need to be heard, not just us.
we
We're
totally
representing a
agree.
lot of people out there.
Sure. And so we post our agendas. Sorry, talk about putting it on the agenda. Item.
It's on the agenda today, so there's other means to find out how that process works. It's not for today. It's not
So I would call the office to see if it's, if it could be or will be a future agenda.
I called the office and got no response.
Yeah, who makes the agenda?
So again, I would call the office and see about that process and getting.
Do you want all of us
agenda
calling
item
your
on.
office, or do you want to just make a decision and say something like, we will work to find a place to have this discussion?
This is not the place for this.
I know that, but
particular
you don't seem
discussion.
to want to give us a place.
I don't have the answer that you're looking for.
So who is empowered to make this decision?
So again, this is not the place to have this discussion.
That's the silly
We
thing to
have
say.
an
You,
agenda that we need to follow, and we're going to follow that agenda. And I appreciate people's comments and everyone coming today. You're more than welcome to be here, but it's not part of our agenda today.
Okay, well,
We're
when you're
not gonna
talking
be
about golf,
discussing today.
there are transgender students who are being isolated from some of the only camaraderie they have.
Right. We don't want to be here to tell you how to do the golf stuff, obviously. I mean, I think that's important. I think it's actually cool. But, you know, right now it feels like that's far more important to you than some of the student athletes in this state. And that is really sad. Because you won't give us any sense of hope that there will be a chance to have this discussion.
That's an unfair assumption.
Why?
So we do have an agenda that we're going to follow.
I know.
Certainly, this is an important topic, and it deserves to be on a future agenda.
Thank you for
It's
saying
not, it's not on today's agenda.
I know.
Okay,
Can you share
thank
with
you.
us the agenda making process so we can encourage whoever makes the agenda to put this on the agenda?
So my first suggestion would be go through your high school principals. They're the ones that come to us with topics that need to be discussed here at the Principals Committee on Athletics. And so that would be my first step for anyone here.
Does it just require one to speak up?
Excuse me, sir?
Does it just require one to speak up?
Sure.
How was today's agenda created, just as a point of reference?
Again, we get information from our principals group around the state, and we put on those topics that are brought to our attention. There's nothing that we disallow or allow. It's just it's an ongoing agenda setting conference.
And
couldn't
when
find
the
the
issue is
minutes
time
of-
sensitive, like this one?
We do need to move on.
When did the Riil make the decision, and why was it an open meeting like this?
Contact your principals and ask that this become an agenda topic, and we'll continue with today's meeting. Again, thank you for coming, and you're welcome to stay.
Okay, at this point, we've got Jay Menard from the Providence School Department to discuss alternative school participation, considerations that they're dealing with in Providence when it comes to that. I'm gonna set, yeah, I can set the table a little bit in alternative. So alternative schools are schools that don't, they're member schools that do not offer a staff-based program. And if they are, in this situation, they're allowed to have their students participate back to their same school districts. So, yeah, excuse me. Really run the comprehensive high school studies program.
Fine.
High school graduates, kids went to the best
I'm following up from
and they were resident of Lincoln, they're able to go back and participate in Lincoln Secondary program. In the city, in Providence, Jay's gonna share with us some things that he's dealing with.
You have the power to do the right thing.
Do the right thing, support
Do the
trans
right
youth,
thing. Do the right thing.
support trans athletes.
Support trans youth.